from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I met a woman there who said every time she fell in love, she smelled fried chicken. She said she smelled fried chicken in her nose. So I started thinking about, well, what do I love? Because surely when I go into schools, they always want to write love poems. They always want to say, roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. So we know everyone loves love. So I thought, well, what do I love? What food do I love best? And I wrote this poem called Southern Love. What's it called? Southern Love. I want love to be like a good pot of greens. So many people in the U.S., especially African Americans, and also Black people around the world, have a wrong view of who they are. So I'd like to encourage them to know their history and to know their culture. I like writing to inspire people because I once met a little girl who had never seen a Black doctor in Wisconsin, and that really hurt me that she had never experienced or thought that Black people could be doctors when we have a long history of doctors. And even in the South, my son had a Black woman pediatrician. I also met in Madison, Wisconsin, a European American woman who said when I was doing a poetry reading, I didn't know there were any African American poets. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, we have such a tremendous legacy of poetry, beginning in the 1700s up to present day, and she wasn't aware of any of them. And that's why I also like to remind everybody about who African Americans are, who Black people are in the world, who we are as a people and as a culture. My name is Fabu Phyllis Carter. I am a poet and I know it. I'm also the first African American Madison Poet Laureate. I was selected in 2008 to 2012. I've always loved poetry, and poetry has always loved me. I love in my poetry giving voice to people who feel their voice is never heard, their voice isn't counted, their voice isn't important. So I want their perspectives and their voice put inside my poetry. So sometimes I write historical poetry. Most often I write narrative poetry because narrative poetry tells a story. I do write haiku. I experiment with forms of poetry because that's what a poet does. Professionally, I'm known as Poet Fabu, and that is because as a child, I've always known I wanted to write, but at first I wanted to be a novelist, and then I fell in love with poetry. It's not the most lucrative profession, and yet it's the profession of my heart. So, if I'm not writing poetry, I'm not happy. If I'm not physically writing poetry, if I'm not typing it into my computer, I am writing poetry in my mind. Oftentimes, a small thing will inspire me. Sometimes it's reading something about a person. Sometimes it's hearing a word that just triggers in me poetry. Because the things that I write, the poems that I write, I want people to know if you look up this person, or if you look up this time period, or if you look up this incident, you will find the factual truth as presented in my poems. But it's very important, the creativity part, because I feel like I give life and I give voice. That's extremely important to me, that people who feel silenced in the world, or people who don't think they matter in the world, especially children and elders who are older adults, they don't feel like their lives or their perspectives matter. And I am very happy to give voice to their feelings and their perspectives and their history and their lived experiences, as a way to honor and celebrate them. So it's particularly important to me that this is Black History Month, and in 1926, historian Carter G. Woodson started this celebration. He started it as a week, and we've grown to a month. What he was trying to show as a historian, he was using documented facts to say everybody needs to know who these African American people are. He felt like if everybody knew, especially Black people, but also European Americans, then they could never say we were inferior, nor will we ever feel inferior. Like all the peoples of the world, we have contributed much. And also what Black people have contributed, including East Africa being the origins of all humankind, these again are now documented. But in 1926, they weren't. But yet he was still able to find facts about inventions and agriculture being one of our gifts to the world. So I particularly enjoy celebrating myself, my people, my community, our neighbors, other Americans in this month we celebrate as Black History Month.